Said I'm about to make history. Said I'm about to make history. Yeah. What's good, y'all? It's your boy Murka, and we back here with a new episode of Black History Year. Man, it's been a long time. I think the last episode I dropped was like 3-4 years ago. It was 2015, so that makes it 4 years ago. This is the end of 2019, man. It's crazy. Had a whole lot of stuff going on. I had a web series, I had music stuff going on, a whole lot of things I was doing, trying to get a couple businesses started. But now we back, getting this channel back started. You can consider this season 2, because I had a whole season 1's worth of episodes back in 2015. But this is just a whole new vibe. We got a whole new quality, whole new situation. So this episode, we're going to talk about the Marin County Civic Center attacks of August 1970. Now, this whole situation stemmed from a situation at Soledad Prison in 1970 where 3 inmates had got shot. 3 African American inmates, mind you, were shot by a correctional officer named O.P.G. Miller. This situation didn't sit right with the other black prisoners in there, especially the ones that were associated with the Black Panther Party. Now, George Jackson was a political activist, a writer, a friend of Angela Davis, and also a prisoner at the Soledad prison. After that happened, George Jackson and the Black Guerrilla family decided that they would get even by killing 3 correctional officers and or 3 white inmates. So a few days after that, they ended up killing an inmate named John Vincent Mills by beating him to death and throwing him over a balcony with a note attached to him saying 1 down, 2 to go. After that happened, they ended up going on trial for it, and they got sent to the San Quentin prison to await trial. Now, on August 7th of 1970, George Jackson organized an armed assault on the Marin County Courthouse to demand his release. The assault took place during the trial for a man named James McLean, who had been accused of stabbing a prison guard. The person that was supposed to be in charge of this whole kidnapping situation was George Jackson's younger brother, 17-year-old Jonathan Jackson. This is how wild it was back then, man. I'm telling you. 17 years old, ready to run into a courthouse and hold a judge hostage. Now, on the day before the whole kidnapping situation, Angela Davis and Jonathan Jackson had rented a yellow utility van. Jonathan went into the courtroom where James McLean was on trial, wearing a long buttoned-up raincoat despite the heat and the lack of rain. The van had trouble running, so Jonathan and Angela Davis went down the street to a gas station to get it repaired. Now, on that day of the kidnapping, Jonathan Jackson walked into the courtroom, 3 guns in his jacket, which were all registered to Angela Davis, mind you. He sat among the spectators for a few minutes before opening his coat, drawing a pistol and throwing it to a Black Panther defendant, and throwing one to James McLean, who was also a Black Panther defendant. He then pulled the M1 carbine from his raincoat as McLean held his pistol against Judge Haley's head. Jackson then told everybody to freeze, and then told court officials, attorneys, and jurors to lie on the floor, while another San Quentin inmate, Rochelle McGee, who was supposed to be there to witness McLean's trial, went to free 3 other testifying prisoners from their holding cell. A 4th Black Panther named William Christmas joined the other 3 Judge Haley was forced at gunpoint to call the sheriff in hopes of convincing the police to refrain from intervening. Road flares, which were used to simulate sticks of dynamite, were held against Judge Haley's neck before being replaced with a sawed-off shotgun, which was fastened under his chin with adhesive tape. They straight taped the sawed-off shotgun to this dude's neck with some tape and walked him out of the courthouse. They took another 4 hostages and tied their hands behind their backs with some piano wire. The district attorney, Gary Thomas, and 3 jurors, they took all of them and moved to the corridor of the courthouse. At this point, it started getting crowded with responding police who had been summoned by a bailiff. No action was taken against them at this point though. But around this time, Jim Keene, who was a photographer, arrived at the building after he had heard news of the incident from police radio in his car. He stepped off an elevator directly adjacent to the hostages and kidnappers and was reportedly told by one of them, "You could take all the pictures you want. We are the revolutionaries." So after that, they entered the elevator, telling the police that they wanted the Soledad brothers freed by 12:30 of that day. When the hostages were forced out onto the sidewalk in front of the Hall of Justice, Judge Haley asked where they were being taken. They told him he was being taken to an airport where they would get a plane. The kidnappers then forced the hostages into a rented Ford van, which they began to drive towards an exit leading to the US 101 freeway. The cops though had set up a roadblock outside the Civic Center in anticipation for the group to be leaving. They wasn't stupid, of course. So as Jonathan Jackson drove the hostages and the 3 convicts away from the courthouse, front passenger McLean shot at the police stationed in the parking lot. The police, of course, exchanged fire, and Judge Haley died as a result of potentially fatal wounds from both the shotgun, which had been taped to his neck, as well as a pistol shot to the chest that was fired either by the kidnappers or the police. Gary Thomas, who was one of the hostages, ended up grabbing a gun from the side of Jonathan Jackson, like from his waistband, because he was sitting behind him. You know, they had him all sitting behind him in the back seats of the utility van. He ended up grabbing Jonathan Jackson's gun while he was in the driver's seat and shooting at them, trying to be on some hero shit. So during this whole situation, he grabs a gun trying to shoot at them, trying to save himself, while the police on the outside is shooting at them. And you know, it's just a big shooting melee going on in the van, outside the van, all over the place. The sole Black Panther survivor of that situation was Ruchell McGee. All the rest of them got killed except for Gary Thomas, which is the one that had grabbed the gun from Jackson. He ended up surviving, and another one of the hostages survived, and they had just got shot in the arm. Her name was Maria Eleanor Graham. So after that whole situation happened, you know, it was a whole crazy scene out there. You know, they ended up pulling all of them out of the van. Gary Thomas ended up being, I think, paralyzed for the rest of his life from the bullet wound that he took while he was inside the van. After the situation happened, a warrant was issued for the arrest of Angela Davis, and she became a fugitive and fled California. She ended up going to Chicago, and then she ended up meeting up with communist leader David Poindexter Jr., who ended up taking her to Miami, Florida. And she ended up using false identification. She cut off an afro, wore a wig, plucked her eyebrows, wore makeup, and wore business glasses to try to conceal herself. But on August 13th of 1970, FBI found her at the Howard Johnson Motor Lodge in New York City. She ended up going to trial for it. She went to trial, and in 1972, she was found not guilty on all counts. And the rest is straight up Black history. Make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. I'm gonna be coming to y'all with more and more history. This is Black History Year, you know. No Black History Month. This is Black History Year. That means that's 12 months. Y'all know how we do. It's your boy Murka Mass. Y'all have yourselves a good day, good evening. Peace out.
Future looking like the sun when you
I think it's